just my character, I'm like 100% passionate, and when I want to do something, I give it my all. And so my teenage years were largely devoted to dance and karate, were the two activities that I devoted myself to after school, and then school. I excelled in school, and so that was my life. It was school, dance, and karate at that time, and those were my friends. Were largely through the dance world and karate world. And then when I got a little bit older, in my junior, senior year of high school, I had to make a decision because I couldn't do both. And so I decided to go full focus on dance. So a little bit more contemporary ballet. You can see the students in the back. I had a great career. I was traveling internationally throughout Europe, throughout Asia, throughout the United States. I had lead roles in dance shows. I was dance captains. I was making my way up the steps, but I wasn't happy in and out of it, and I had no idea why. And I wasn't even conscious that I was happy. This is what I got to do, because I never wavered from that commitment that I was going to thrive in this performing arts career. But I never explored religion because, I always felt that if I chose one religion, I would be refusing the other one. So why should I choose one? Because it would imply that I'm rejecting everything else. So I didn't. Although looking back, I wish I had the Junior Spiritual Empowerment Program. It would have helped with a lot of unnecessary trauma that happened in my life. My mom is from the Philippines and my dad's American, and my mom was a dancer, professional dancer. So she started a dance studio here, almost 40 years ago. And I didn't have any spiritual religious education growing up. I went to church a handful of times in my life. And so my main source of religious education, because as a dancer and into musical theater, was the musical Jesus Christ Superstar. And I was really sympathetic towards Judas, because in the musical they portrayed him as a conflicted character, and the music was great. And so I was really attracted to the life of Jesus and the mystery behind Jesus Christ. From the surface of it, it was a relationship that I was in for about 2 years on tour with a fellow cast member from West Side Story, and basically I got my heart broken from that, and it caused me to reevaluate my life. What I realized later was that I wasn't happy in general. I was in and out of depression dancing, and I didn't know why. I was just kind of going for it. My dream was to go into dance, make it on Broadway, eventually maybe transition to TV and films. And I was kind of on that trajectory. I was doing very well, but I just wasn't happy, and it took the relationship to kind of wake me up to that, and I kind of hit rock bottom emotionally, because I had realized I'd put so much onto that relationship because I was so unhappy inside, and it was one of the biggest blessings, if not the biggest blessings of my life, because it caused me just to reevaluate everything. My name is Brett Emmons. I live here in Dover, Delaware. I'm a financial advisor. I work with my dear spiritual father and mentor, Peter Olje. If I'm not working or if I'm not with my family, I'm serving. It's essentially what I do. I'm so passionate about the cause and community building. So ballet requires a lot of commitment, and if you're going to make it into that, you better be fully 100% into it. And so I was doing that for several years and developed a lot of discipline through that, and a love for the arts, a love for beauty, a love for movement. Both my parents are strong moral examples, so they had strong principles, just a lot of uprightness, a lot of moral rectitude, and very principled base in their decisions. My friend, we were roommates on West Side Story, and so we had roommate for about a year, and we were on the last leg, and he got the front row seats on the breakdown of my life, and he heard all my wailing and complaining and despair, and they got sick of me, essentially. They forced me to sit down and meditate because they were big into meditation, and so I found that hard but helpful. And eventually, he just said, dude, like, you just gotta listen to this podcast. It was a podcast from a Western Buddhist monk that talked about forgiveness. And it just hit me right in the core of my soul. It was like, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not forgiving for the other person. I'm forgiving for my own self, for my own healing, That anger is like a hot coal, and it may hurt somebody else, may or may not, but what happens when you're holding a hot coal, you're definitely gonna burn yourself, And so I was learning about these things for the first time, and this idea, like, I tried to distract myself through whatever, and none of it was like helping me feel anything or feel like I'm progressing in any way or feel better. And this opened up a huge path. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to take this higher road and discover what that meant. And it just led to a spiritual healing journey. I came back here in Dover and stayed at my parents' in the summer of 2010. And I started going to churches for the first time, started joining meditative groups. And what became a spiritual healing journey then became a religious investigation. In the beginning of that summer, I decided to just go on a little retreat. And I went first to the Shenandoah Valley on a mountain without a phone, just a GPS and some money. And I saw beautiful mountains, beautiful valleys, but I was looking at it, it wasn't doing anything for my soul. And I realized I've seen a lot of beautiful places in the world. And for some reason I was drawn to go to Charleston, South Carolina. I heard things about Charleston, so I just took another course and went down there, spent there several days, just enjoyed myself and felt like I could reinvent myself. I could start a new life. I could totally give up my old life and begin a whole new one. And when I knew that, when I felt that, I decided to come back. I was helping my mom at her dance studio, and they have a show every summer at the end of the summer. And I was just kind of backstage helping out. And here comes Peter and Judy Auger. Now, Peter and Judy, I've known them since I was a kid because their daughter went to my mom's dance studio, same age as my sister. And so I knew him from that. And I knew Peter was a Baha'i back then, but I didn't know anything about the Baha'i faith. I knew they did activities when I was a teenager as well, but maybe I wasn't even invited to one thing. I might have gone to one event, but I had no idea what I was doing at the time. So when Peter and Judy come backstage just to say hi to my mom, and they saw that I'm back, and they saw that I was going through a journey. So of course, being aware as they are, they invited me to come to their home sometime and just talk. I think I told Peter, like, I'm into philosophy. He said, yeah, I'm into that. I'm no, but of course he knew deeper what that was. So a couple weeks later, I went to Peter's house and gave him basically my life story up to that point. After 30 minutes, let's not beat around the bush. They sat me down inside the house at their coffee table. They whipped out Anna's flip book presentation, and they went through Anna's presentation for me. And everything was just like I was soaking it all in. Everything was making sense. At that point, I had talked to a lot of pastors, and they would always ask me this one question, like, or not even the one question, but just the idea that Christ says he's the way, the truth, and life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And so I'd always ask about, what about Buddha? What about Krishna? And they said, yeah, they got partial truth, but Christ says this, it's the one way. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And so I couldn't resolve it, no matter how. I did some deep meditations, came to really believe in God through my meditations, but like I could not figure out that question of how Christ could say he's the way, truth, and life, no one's come through me, and how there's also these other messengers. And so when I came across Baha'u'llah and the teachings and going through the concepts in Anna's presentations, it just soaked right in, like it made complete sense to me. And so then he gives me a couple of reading materials that I wanted stuff to read and follow up on, and then we set up a date, and I have two questions. One about reincarnation, because I was really exploring that, and then the other one about why should I call myself a Baha'i. So Peter told me on the Wednesday when I saw him again, think about the difference between recognition and belief. Just told me to ponder that, basically, was the outcome. And then he gave me the Kitab Yagan to read, and then also gave me the passage from Some Answer Questions about reincarnation. So I tear through the Kitab Yagan, like I read that in like 3 days. Decided to read this tablet on reincarnation on the beach with my sister. We were down in Cape Henlopen in Delaware with a few friends, and they were on the water, and I said, oh, go ahead and read this few pages on reincarnation. I've been thinking about reincarnation for the past couple of months, and it was making a lot of sense to me, very logical. And it took me about 15 minutes to read through it, and then all of a sudden, the world exploded in front of me. It was a spiritual eruption. My lights were going before my eyes. I had to stand up, and I had no idea what hit me. Just after reading that, I had to get away. I walked about a mile away from where my sister was stationed with her friend. And was just dumbfounded by this revelation, the truth that was ringing, and I found myself spiritually on a fence. All of a sudden I'm just on this fence, and it's do I go forward or I do go back? And I either dive into this and fully immerse myself into this, or I reject it and I don't ever consider it again. And I couldn't stay on the fence. I had to make a choice. I had to make a decision. And there was really no going back. I knew what back was, so my only choice was really go forward, but it was terrifying. It was terrifying, and it was I just no idea what hit me. All it was a fireworks and eruption. But I knew my heart had discovered the truth, and I knew that I had to go forward, and that I just had to submit. I just had to submit to it. And so the next day I see Peter when we had scheduled to meet, and he knew I was about to go to New York City the next day, and he said, "You must be excited about that." And I said, "I'm more excited to be here." He's like, "Oh." And I tell him, Baha'u'llah is this messenger of God. If this is claim, this is what he says he is, if who he is, then I have no reason to reject it. And he knew from whatever words I said that day, he knew in my heart that I had recognized Baha'u'llah, and he said, "Welcome." And I was like, yeah, that's it. For me, it was so much more than just a station of Baha'u'llah. I mean, that was a big part of it, but for once I felt this great sense of unity. I had been exploring all these religions. I was really learning about being of service to humanity. That was a huge outcome of the spiritual journey, and it's why, when I came across the messages from the House of Justice, it just fit right in with my spiritual journey. So when I recognized Station Baha'u'llah, I felt at unity with all the religions and all the people. It was the first time in my life in a way I've never felt before. So that night, I'm in this overwhelming spiritual space, and I go back because I'm still staying at my parents', which is just a block away from Peter and Judy. So I'm just walking back and forth. I walk back, and my parents are on their couch watching some TV show, and I just come to the doorway and it's hey, so I think I'm a Baha'i. And they're like, that's good. I'm like, okay, good night. They probably thought that I was going through like a Buddhism phase or going through the church. So they thought it was some other thing, but it was just, they just kind of rolled with it, essentially. And then eventually they saw how serious I was about this and how transformative it was on my life. Because they were really concerned, because I had stopped everything, I was heartbroken. So they wanted to just give me space to heal. But then they saw that these changes were happening in my life. I was finding a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, and involving myself in service. And so they were really grateful. Maria and I got married. We married at the backyard of Peter and Judy at their home. So it was a small wedding, immediate family, and so my parents were very supportive through all of that. So that's been a blessing. I feel Abdu'l-Baha's presence all the time, all the time. I really strive to try to read the stories of the Master and the way he lived his life, just so I can be immersed in his way of being, so I can always try to call him to mind. And he is my guide, and whenever I need that reminder of a loving presence, a loving Father, a forgiving Father, I think of Abdu'l-Baha. He's closer. Baha'u'llah, I'm so grateful to Baha'u'llah, but Baha'u'llah is beyond my comprehension. But Abdu'l-Baha helps me remember that about the true nature of love and his Father's love. I learn it through Abdu'l-Baha. So it doesn't matter what happens to you in the past. If your heart is truly searching, then the answer will come to you like a breeze.